Hello, if anybody's out there. It doesn't look like there's anybody watching yet, but so this is a conversation, my first conversation with a group of people living in China, and they're expats. And I'm trying to get their expert opinion on what it takes to raise your kid, be it foreign kid or a mixed kid in China now. And yeah, I've got questions, and I'm sure there's lots of other people who are interested to know what's going on. So yeah, let's get started. I will start with Alex.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey.
Good morning. Don't know what time it is with you, actually.
It's evening for me, yeah.
Evening for you, okay. It's just morning. Just had my first coffee of the day.
Nice. Yeah, I had to have a coffee today too. So yeah, introduce yourself, Alex. Who are you?
Okay, so if anybody doesn't know me, I'm a British guy. I've been living here in Wenzhou, China for like 8 years now. I've got 2 sons. I've been married just over 6 years now, I guess. Yeah, it's been a kind of crazy ride because I met my wife in about the 6-7 months of being here in Wenzhou. And it's just been kind of mad ever since then. Every city in China has different requirements for getting married and this and that. So I've had to buy houses and cars. The wedding was The wedding was actually a year after we got legally married when I bought my house, because they told me it would be better if you're already married when you buy the house here. So I got legally married, which was free and very underwhelming. And then it actually turned out it would have been easier it would have been easier if I hadn't been married. So it made things 10 times harder. But yeah, since then I've been through the whole getting married and having the 2 kids here. Both my children are Chinese citizens. They're both born here in China, because being from Britain, you can have they can be Chinese citizens, but they can also be recognized as being British, so they can have the best of both worlds, which is great. But yeah, that's me. You can come find me on YouTube as Alex Absolute. It's usually videos up once a week. Although recently
you have a lot of videos of like when you went to the hospital with your wife for your childbirth and stuff like that.
I vlogged the whole way. Yeah, I vlogged the whole way through. They told
like
me
everything.
Yeah, it was good fun.
That's a good, I would suggest going to see that if anybody's interested in like the process. So it gave me some flashback, but I didn't get the chance to go to the hospital, to the ER room. They didn't give me that.
The first time I didn't either. The first time I was actually in there, but they wouldn't let me go through that, paying a whole bunch of money, and my wife was being very Chinese and saying, no, let's just save money. So I was with her right until, I guess, 20 minutes before, and then I guess an hour or so afterwards. But the second time went the whole way through, just paid all the money and got the private room and that.
Sweet. All right, let's move on to Alden. Is it Alden?
Alden, like Alden finished.
All right, Alden, how about you introduce yourself to the audience?
We've been living in China for, I guess, a total of 5 or 6 years. We lived here from 2012 to 2016. And then we went home for 2 years, and then we came back for another 2 years. I have 2 boys, age 11 and 12. And they're in school here in an international Shanghai American school, so an international school. But before, when we lived here before, we were at Yaocheng, which is it's a British Hong Kong school. So basically half English speaking, half Chinese speaking. So.
Oh, cool. So it's like sorry, I forgot the word I was going to say. I guess bilingual.
We're here because
in Canada we have English and I was thinking immersion, like English immersion kind of school. Like here we have French immersion in Canada. So.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. And our next guest, Casey.
Hi.
All right, let the audience know who you are and maybe tell us about your situation.
Okay. I'm Casey. I'm from South Africa. I've been living in China for, I think, 5 years now. I have a daughter. She is currently in grade 3. She, when we first came to China, she was in a kindergarten. So she went to all Chinese public kindergarten. And then after that, she joined a public school, Chinese public school for 2 years. And then when coronavirus happened, all the schools basically closed for like 8-9 months. They weren't going to school here. So I decided to just start homeschooling her because the whole system just wasn't working for me anymore. So we started homeschooling, and that's where we are now. I'm an English teacher. I'm a single mom, so it's just me and my daughter and my dog. And yeah, that's about it.
Okay, that's interesting. Actually, I'm going to start the first question with Casey. Since you brought up homeschooling, how did you get that set up in China? It's interesting. Didn't know it was available. Did you hear?
Don't you just need a home to be home?
Hello? Sorry, I think it's lagging a bit.
Oh, okay. Oh, I just popped up the question.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Nope.
Hello?
There you go.
Maybe I put that away. It'll go.
Sorry,
Did it come
I don't
back
know
now?
what happened. In Chinese
Maybe it's because I
internet.
popped up the words. It's like it doesn't like it. Okay.
Can you hear me?
How did you get set up with homeschooling in China? Like, how does that work?
Okay, so basically, I was somebody added me to a WeChat group that was for parents in China that are homeschooling their children, because I think it's one of the alternatives if you're an expat, if you're a foreigner in China, unless you're living in a tier 1 city with a really good income, it's very difficult to send your children to private school or international schools. And sometimes if your kid's not, if their Chinese level isn't very good, it's difficult to integrate into a public school, because the level of, I don't know how to explain, but just the amount of work that they do, and the Chinese level has to be really good to get through. So after, when coronavirus happened and all the schools closed, my daughter she was halfway through grade 2 at that time. And I just decided that it's something that I need to do. I can't leave the country. I can't send her somewhere. I'm kind of stuck. So this is what I need to do. So I joined a WeChat group for parents that were expats and homeschooling their children. And I just asked them for some advice, like, how do they do it? Is it something that would be viable for me? And a couple of them suggested certain homeschooling curriculums, and I found one that worked for me. It's from my home country, which is South Africa. And it's been working all right so far. It's a bit strenuous. It takes a lot of, what is that word? Like self-motivation and just getting up every day, making sure she does. Yeah, I'm a teacher, but it's different when you're teaching your own child. You don't have that kind of patience that you would if it's not your kid. But so we just started with this homeschooling system, and a year on, and it's been going all right. It's
Sweet.
okay.
All right. So you're like using, I guess, the schooling system from back home, like going.
Well, actually, she's actually learning on the Cambridge system. She's not learning CAPS, which is South African system, but it's a homeschooling setup that's from my country. So it's everything. Their second additional language is Afrikaans, which is what it is in South Africa, and she struggles with that. She hasn't spoken a word of Afrikaans in her whole life. She can speak Chinese, she can speak English, but she can't speak our second additional language. So she struggles with that, and I'm not Afrikaans, so I can't really teach it to her very well. But other than Monstelnobra, yeah. But that's not the kind of thing you would learn in school. So, but other than that, they've got the normal subjects, math, English, science, like personal power, which is like a life orientation kind of class.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because my daughter's doing online schooling in Canada too, like a lot of kids are doing right now. And yeah, they had some kind of program like that too for like mental health and stuff like that.
Yeah. And the other day they were like,
props. I couldn't do it. We were stuck in America for 8 months and I had to homeschool my kids for 3 of those months and I wanted to pull all my hair out. So congrats to you. I can't do it.
I feel the same.
Yeah.
I often feel like I have those moments where I'm just like, you're a bad mom, like you should be doing more. But then I have to realize that this is the situation that we're presented with now. There isn't another option. I can't leave China and just go to another country because of the situation that the world is in. So this is what it is, and I'm doing the best that I can.
That's right.
China, she sees China as her home because she's been here since she was like 5 years old, 4 years old. So she doesn't have that mindset of there's something better on the other side. This is what she knows. So I think we're doing okay with what we have been presented, and she's a really good kid. She doesn't give me hassle about anything.
That's good.
Yeah.
Good kid. Okay, Alden, raising kids in China and in the USA, which you just brought up, how was it transitioning like back and forth? And how many times did you go back and forth from your country? Like, and how was it integrating back into China?
It was the first time we came over, they were 2 and 3. So it wasn't like they were losing friends. It wasn't like they were, too used to something at home. This was okay for them at that age. I feel like, it wasn't like a huge transition for them as much as it was for me. I had to learn how to grocery shop. I had to learn how to take a taxi. I had to learn Chinese. I had to, my husband was going to work. He works for Disney. And so it was kind of like his bubble from Pasadena went to his bubble in China. And so he still spoke English every day, and he still ate the same food and the same people. So really it was on the mom or the trailing spouse for most people to kind of figure out the rest of the world. So I think my stress level was quite high when we first came. And it was such a relief for me to get my children into school, because that was something stable for them every day, always the same time, always the same kids, that sort of thing. So we had a child at the time that we thought needed special needs. So that was very difficult to find a school that would accept that at that time. 2012 was fairly new. We struggled with, do we tell the school that we need extra help? Do we not tell the school? So anyway, we ended up going to YCIS, Yaochang International School. And it turns out that he was ahead of schedule, that he was already reading. We didn't know. But he was very sensitive to lights, to sounds, to tags in his clothing, that sort of thing. So everybody was like, why would you bring him to China? Out of all the places in the world, you're sensitive to smells. This is not the right place for you. So we went through several, we would go to Care For. I don't know if you guys have Care For, but just the overwhelming sense of so many people and sounds and whatever else. And he just had to get used to it. And he did.
Wow.
My younger, he wasn't in school, so he was on the wait list for 3 or 4 months. So he stayed with me while the older went to school, and then he added in as well. And they really transitioned well the first time coming over. When we went home, we had more issues because they didn't really know the American lifestyle, the American school. We found more culture shock going home. Yeah. And we went home right during the election, that other election that we won't speak of. So we went from not understanding the news, not, kind of blocking out that part of our lives to constantly. So I think that was quite scary for them. School shootings were in the news, that sort of thing. They had to go to public school where these kids had already been together, had a quite tight-knit group of friends they didn't really understand. So I guess when we first came over, I realized I was a trailing spouse, so I had not a lot to do. So I was involved in the school a lot. I had to ride the school bus with them because they were so young, so I was just already there. So I was volunteering quite a lot. I was in the classroom a lot. So when we went back home, I continued that. I couldn't find a job at the time, so I realized that other parents, so how do I say that? So other trailing spouses here in China, there's so many of us, there's 50% of us who aren't working. So there's a lot of volunteering going on in these international schools. Whereas in America, people are working. They don't have as much time to dedicate to their kids' schooling. So I found that was a weird transition too.
Oh, yeah. So I remember you brought up something.
Yeah?
Sorry. The audio was just echoing a bit. It's all right. But you did brought up we talked about, you mentioned something about tiger mom versus soccer mom. So this is, I guess, the culture clash you had when you're coming back.
Yeah, I think when people ask me
what's a tiger mom?
Yeah, maybe the audience doesn't know.
I know a soccer mom's like one of those ditzy girls that like rocks up in like, you know, like a really expensive car and
usually an SUV, a really big one.
I mean, honestly, I think both titles are kind of offensive because it's kind of a way to make fun of a mom's way of steering.
Yeah.
I recognize myself more as the soccer mom because I will follow my kid's desire. You know, if my kid's like showing that he likes trampoline, then I'll take him to gymnastics, or if, you know, whatever, he likes soccer, great, or our friends are playing soccer, we'll all go do that. And soccer mom kind of is constantly in her car taking her kids to activities and play dates and cutting oranges for practice, whatever. Whereas a tiger mom, the way I understand it, is more focused on getting a leg up, making sure that their kid has an advantage for college, for school, for you know, future prospects and work. Whereas
so like Chinese moms.
So like China.
Was a book written by a Chinese mom, so it was discussing that aspect of it. And I found actually it was the first time we were here, I signed them up for a swim class. And then they were like 5 and 6 years old. They got in the pool and they had a great time. And the coach came over to me and said, "I can't teach your kids." And I was like, "Why?" She goes, "All they want to do is play and splash." I go, "Great, no problem. Here's the money, less for you to do." And she goes, "No, I can't do kids." She didn't want to have anything to do with it if they weren't going to be like Olympic material.
Oh my God.
You got to take it serious, you know, 5 years old.
So yeah, we've had, I think one piece of advice I'd have for people looking for schools when they come to China or homeschool options or whatever else is, like the other parents, like make sure that you fit in as a parent. I know that you want your kids to have the best education and whatever else, but if you don't feel like you're melding in that community, it will be difficult because we've struggled finding like play dates or like kids families we get along with because of that tiger aspect of like, they will be in chess club, then they will be in Kumon, then they will be in violin lessons. They're so booked. They don't have time to just
like, she has time at 7 p.m. on Saturday evening. You can have a play date then. Like, what?
Yeah.
What is your kid doing the whole day?
Right. So I don't meet other parents, you know, so that's why we went over to the Shanghai American School. We feel like the community there kind of fits more with our model.
Okay. So yeah, I guess.
But I think you're very lucky to have those options. I mean.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Like, what kind of options are out there?
I realize that. And
Okay, so you wanted to say something?
No, I was just saying that you're blessed to be in a position where you can have those options for your kids. I mean, it's great. Like, I wish that I could be in Shanghai now, like choosing which school I feel good in for my daughter. I mean, it's a blessing, I think, and it has its challenges, definitely. Just like everybody has their different challenges here, but
absolutely.
I'm really envious.
We're here because my husband works for Disney. So as an expat package, it's paid for. So we don't even consider the cost of it. But now his contract's coming up in June, and now we're struggling to figure out what are we going to. We truly want to stay, but the school alone, cost-wise, is almost prohibitive. Like we'll give up the apartment, we'll give up the gym, we'll give up all of that, i.e. just to keep the school. But it's, it's a good 252,000 RMB per kid per year.
Insane.
You know the pro move with that though, right?
I'm sorry?
If you want to get free schooling, go get yourself a job at the school. That's my plan. Just keep working.
But even then, it's not free always. It's not always free.
It's usually reduced cost, and especially here in Wenzhou, like I could go to any of the schools here and just be like, hey, I want to take my kids here. Primo does the same. He gets free schooling in Shanghai for both his children. It saves him hundreds of thousands a year. If you don't mind putting some English classes in, you could just go get some free schooling.
Unfortunately, you have to have a degree, at least at our school. And I'm an actress. I don't have a teaching degree, but that's something we considered.
Any degree is fine.
They take a one child per teacher, so I still have two.
Oh.
Yeah. I was looking into moving the end of this holiday, and a lot of the bigger cities, I mean, I'm talking about like Shanghai and Beijing and those kind of cities. The schools will they will tell you like, okay, we'll take off like 50% of the school fees, but then there's still the other 50, it's more than I make, So, I mean, there are schools where you can get free schooling, and I found those schools, but it also depends on what suits your family's needs. I mean, a lot of schools that will give free are like foreign language schools, not necessarily international schools. And I find that in China specifically, they'll tell you, this is a foreign language school. We teach in English. And then you get there and it's like they have one English class a day and the rest of the classes in Chinese. So it really depends on if your child can follow those guidelines and they can speak Chinese and they can integrate into a Chinese system, you're good to go. But if you don't have that support system, or you don't have that family, your child can't like keep up with the curriculum, it makes your options a lot less.
Yeah, that's I guess that's where I always forget, because my kids go to an all Chinese kindergarten. They don't actually even learn English. It's a public one because kindergarten. Well, my youngest's only one, so he doesn't do anything at the moment. He's actually somewhere out here. But the oldest, he's just in his first year of kindergarten, and it's pretty sweet for us because my wife works for the government, so she has this government in the system number, and it means that the government will fund half of the kindergarten. And if you go to a public kindergarten as well, it's not like the 16,000 per semester. It's I think it's 4 per semester. So overall, it's one of the best in the city. So we get one of the best in the city's Montessori kindergarten, public kindergarten, and it's like 4,000 a year, which is, it's nothing really. Like nothing. So it's kind of lucky. But and I guess because my son's both one speaks Chinese. In fact, his Chinese is better than his English. Sometimes he speaks, which is kind of embarrassing. Sometimes he speaks Chinese-style English. The other day, he said, "Daddy, give me C," which is like just a direct translation of "给我看一下." So, but it's all right because like the school where I work is a training school, and my son comes there for free. They just let him join a class, so he's improving his English there. I do try and teach him at home, but life is just so busy. Plus, like I have kids here every day, and then I have to go to work and teach little kids as well. And it's like the only time I'm not with kids is
my life.
I pretty much started catching the bus because I just need some time when I'm not near children. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. I've always always liked the idea maybe of having international schools, but A, they're ridiculously expensive, and B, I don't think we even have one in Wenzhou. Well, we have international schools, but they're not like where my sister teaches in Shanghai at one, and they do everything like it's all in English the whole time. But
which one?
I can't remember what it's called now. It's one of the baccalaureate, is it like the French
IB.
ones? An IB school. It's in like the main part over on Puxi, or maybe Pudong. I can't remember, but it's one of the top ones in Shanghai. It's but that is I wouldn't want to pay that money.
Unfortunately, because the corporations have been paying the price tag, it's gotten out of control. I mean, they don't even think of individuals having to pay. It's the corporates that are paying. So I know that the public schools here have international wings, what they call an international wing of the public school. So that's an option too. And it's like you said, if you have Hukou, you can go.
For me, like it's like, you know how China runs. It's all about guanxi. Having the right guanxi gets you in a lot of places, and I don't really have a problem with that. We have that. It's not that. It's a lot of the time also it's decisions to be made with, because I've worked in a lot of these schools, and I can see this kind of schools that I don't want them going to. So at the minute I've decided just all Chinese, because the ones that I've seen a lot of here, it's foreigners that are teaching there, but some of the foreigners are not native speakers, which you may as well just have no teaching than teaching of English than teaching by somebody whose pronunciation isn't that great. So there's a lot of other things for me to consider. So at the minute I'm just like, I'd rather not pay big money for something which I don't consider is a particularly great service. So
your kids are young too. They're really learning how to learn right now. It's kind of later on where they're actually learning the curriculum. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the important thing here is it really stresses me out, and because my wife is like one of those mothers who wants to already be planning for like what primary school they're going to go to, and I'm like, he's 4 and 1. Like do we need to be thinking that far ahead? And, but it's stressful. We need to get everything planned right now. Everything needs to be done. And I'm like, I just can't take it all in. It gets too much.
I think too, once they get to my kids' age and maybe 3rd grade, they start getting personalities. You start realizing their own learning ways, styles. Like I have one child who's very checklist, gold star, must get an A, blah, 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 who probably would do great in a public school here. But then I have one who's really creative, really imaginative, kind of sensitive, and he's a whole different...
That's my daughter. The public system here didn't work for her because she would go to school, she'd put her head on her desk, and she'd just fall asleep, and nobody would wake her up. They'd just leave her. They'd leave her, and after class, they'd tell me, Kaylin was sleeping in class today. And I said, did you wake her up? No, we didn't. What must I do? I'm not there. Or she'd sit and she'd come back, and her whole notepad is just like filled with drawings and paint like pictures, and she'd have this whole story. And it's like, so what did you do? She imagined this whole world in her head for the day. That's what she did. So
I will say I have a unique perspective, because when we went from a school here in Shanghai to LA, in LA, I realized my kids were a full year advanced in math.
Yeah.
We were just mediocre. I'm not saying that we were brilliant students here, but just math wise, we were so far ahead. Now, their English was subpar. They hadn't been learning capitalization or punctuation. So they really had to struggle to catch back up in the English levels. Of course, they had Chinese that none of the other kids had. And I was hoping that we would be able to continue our Chinese when we were in America. But when you are, fighting against birthday parties, soccer, and, play dates, your kid's not going to choose Chinese unless you're in the Chinese immersion school. So we dropped our Chinese and came back. We had to struggle to catch up again with Chinese, struggle to catch up again with the math. But so I would say if you're moving anywhere, even just cities or even just countries, you're going to notice places that you're going to have to catch up and not catch up. But again, at a young age, they're learning how to learn. And then once they get to the actual curriculum, it's a whole nother. Do you want them in the American curriculum where you're learning, that government process and that the US dollar versus, we find it so funny when in the British school we were learning pounds. Who uses pounds? The Europeans don't even use pounds. So
I thought that was an American thing.
No.
Is it not?
So I guess another question I had, I didn't actually pose it here because you guys answered so many questions in just that conversation. I don't even have to post them now.
Sorry.
But that was good.
I told you, just the conversation. Parents can speak for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah. One thing
lack
is
of
I noticed,
other adults to converse with.
Exactly. What I find interesting, because I'm in Canada and we're thinking about going back, is like, what are all the options out there for foreign kids? Like, what types of schools are there? You mentioned there's like American programs. I know there's
I don't know because mine are all going to be into like the Chinese side of it, I guess. So I don't know what options I get. I guess you get like your private stuff, which is money. You get all your public stuff. But if you're in Shanghai or Beijing, you've got a better chance for having an all English learning environment, as far as I gather. If you're in Wenzhou, it would be a lot harder. People do it here, but for me, I prefer the life here than I do in Shanghai, because for me, Shanghai is just too international, too big. It's not
too fast.
Wenzhou is a bit slower.
I like the fact that I live here, and if I go this way from here, it's back into the city, and if I go this way, there's just wetlands for like a long way, so I can get half like country kind of feel and half city. It's a big city. I mean, here they say it's
it doesn't take you long to get out, right? Whereas in Beijing, it probably takes you an hour to get through the traffic.
Yeah.
I know in kindergarten here we have Montessori. We have what's the other one where they cook a lot? Person's name, like a French person's name. But anyway, we have those. Then we have the private. Then we have the public. My kids have the option of like American or British or the Hong Kong. So I think having the English aspect kind of gives you more. Then you have the IB system. Once you get to like high school, you need to start thinking about IB versus AP, because those are what the colleges will take. But after 2 years of COVID, this has really changed the way colleges are accepting kids now, because they haven't been able to do the testing. So those have been thrown out the window, which is very sad for the kids who studied it. And, they waited all this time to have that be plus points on their resumes, but who knows where it's going to go from here. I think that the IB system is probably more likely to survive than the AP system, because now people are looking at colleges in Europe and elsewhere, because America, quite frankly, has been quite a mess this year. So, and I have also heard that, kids are deferring. They took a year off from going to college this year because of COVID. So now these kids that are seniors and graduating this year, they're up against twice as many kids to get that freshman spot again. So there are a lot of challenges for high school students right now that I'm so glad that we're not actually in high school that we're dealing with. But it does make you think that the future of, everybody must go to an American college is changed. There's definitely more openings, more thoughts of where to go and how and what to study.
Okay, so does anybody know how to explain
the
IB?
The American English things are...
Oh.
Sorry, carry on. I interrupted.
Yeah, does anybody know how to explain the systems or different systems? Like you said, there's the IB system and I don't remember the other one.
AP.
IP?
AP.
I know there's an
advanced
A
placement. It's advanced placement. It's quite similar to the SAT testing and the SAT and what was the other one?
A-levels.
The IB is a French one, isn't it? And it's something to do with the baccalaureate. Is that
International Baccalaureate? International Baccalaureate is on a 7-point scale with the testing, and so you can sometimes some colleges will let you test out of your freshman year of, I don't know, let's say econ or English or something like that, or it gives you more points on your application to colleges, that sort of thing. I'm not in college. I mean, my kids aren't in college yet, so I'm not really that versed in this, but I took IB when I was in high school. So I just remember that little aspect of it. It used to be a huge selling point for SAS and Dulwich here because they offer IB as well as AP. But again, I think these things are changing now. I don't think people are that focused on, because with the IB, at least it's kind of like a standard for all countries. Like, you know, what's an A in English in France versus what's an A in English in China? So the IB program kind of set that up, the same testing. So it kind of measured all kids on the same playing ground.
Yeah.
But I don't know in the future if that's really something that they're going to continue. It's hard. I will say, as a middle school parent, my kids are graded on a rubric scale, which is basically like approaching, meeting, or exceeding. It's a strange scale. So if my kids are in the meeting, then they're fine. But to me, it's like, well, why wouldn't you want them to be exceeding? You know, because then they would be in the higher levels. But then I'm like, how do I motivate them to do any extra credit? Or, you know, those are difficult for me.
Yeah. The cultural
I think
difference.
the pressure that children get put on under here is something which kind of I'm not too fond of. I'm not too fond of like with my two sons. I've said absolutely. I said to my wife, absolutely, I am not doing the same as all the Chinese parents. I don't care if your friends are doing it all with their kids and everything else. We're not just forcing them into class after class after class after class. Because like I work in a training center, and I see all the other training centers around, and the kids will come in and they'll go to one class and they'll come out of there and they'll go into another class, and it's like, nah, that's not for me. Like
kids need time to be bored. Kids need time to just
study.
play.
Yeah, I think you learn a lot of social skills by playing and interacting with other children. Like I never went to, I hardly went to any classes. I think I did like some music classes, maybe some extra maths because my maths sucks. I never survived here as a student with my level of maths. But,
yeah, mine too.
Yeah.
But if you understand the meaning behind all the classes, and how do I say it? Like the way that the society is set up in China, it's not the same as where we come from.
Right.
The lifestyle of just going outside to play with your friends. When you see the street lights come on, you come back inside, kind of thing. Here, the society, the way that they think, it's not the same, and it's not necessarily wrong. It's just different. For them, because most families only have that one child, they see it as, this is our future. This is the future of our family, and we need to put everything into this child so that they can give back,
right?
Like in the future. And because of universities and schools are so in high demand to get good grades, so you can get into that university. Because if you don't do it, another kid is just going to come back behind you and take it out. So
yeah, there seems to be less seats for more kids. So don't they start getting tested when they're 8 or so to place them in
primary school?
I don't necessarily agree with it, but I'm just saying, like, if you can, it's like I have classes. I also work at a training center, and I'll come in and my kids are like, I'm tired. I had like 5 classes today. And it's like, what did you do? Oh, Chinese writing and dance class and maths. And it's like, it's Saturday afternoon. Just go and play. But even their play is a class. They don't play. Their play is a class. They'll go to swimming class, for example, and they have to learn how to swim and be the best instead of just going and playing in the water. So sometimes it's also one of the reasons why public school didn't work for Kaylin, because it was too much pressure. It was you go to school until like 4:30 in the afternoon, and then you have to have your classes, and then you have to do your homework, which is more than you learned the whole day at school. It was too much. It wasn't working for us.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say I do put my son in classes, some classes, but it has to be if he wants to have them. Like he just did a stage show and he sang a cute little Chinese song, and it was because he'd seen people on a stage and he said, "Daddy, I want to go and do that." So we put him in we found a good school. Like if I'm gonna do something, I'm somebody who if I want to buy something or I want to do something, I'll buy as good as we possibly can. So we found him a good school. And he's been doing that and he likes it. But I'm okay with that because he wanted to do that and he asked to do that. Like he has a Lego class and that's great because, you know, I still love Lego now, if I'm honest. Lego is fantastic. And so like I can sit down afterwards and they have some mad stuff here, like Lego class schools.
Is it like an art school or what kind of
drone flying?
Even if it's just colors and numbers, but they're learning because the other kids are talking to them, so they're learning even if it's just Lego. And my husband's an architect. I mean, we have to learn creativity. We have to learn imagination, or else we're just following everybody else. And I would like to see more of that. You know, like if you learn to be on stage, you're learning to speak to people. You're learning, you know, you could be an actress, but you could also be a politician, but you could also be a CEO who has to, you know, get people motivated, that sort of thing. I think, unfortunately, when we only think of the boxes of math, English, and science, and we're only programming people to follow in the last person's footsteps. And you know, and I think it's really important that we keep thinking outside of that box and keep it going. And I think we've seen a lot of Chinese locals coming into the international schools because they're such great schools, but then trying to mold that international school back into that testing module and that strict module. So it's a fine line to walk. I mean, the international schools here, especially this year when foreigners can't get back into the country, can't get that PU letter, can't, you know, less and less foreigners to go to these very expensive international schools. So they start, what am I trying to say, like softening the restrictions, you know, only a foreign passport and you can get your kid in, that sort of thing. And then those parents come in, they're happy to have the American curriculum, but they want the kids tested and they want it to be, you know, how the other schools were doing. So it's that fine line that the schools are having to play right now. How much of our own identity do we keep and how much do we sacrifice, you know, to continue on the Chinese method?
I have one question for Alex. You guys also can answer this too, probably, but based on like values and stuff. So while China is like increasingly adopting Western influences through the years, the traditional Chinese family structure still holds a prominent position. But how does your British values compare with your wives? I guess what is your experience with that?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. You hear these horror stories. You see all these YouTubers posting videos about how, you know, like a Western Chinese relationships are always doomed to do this, and like you hear all these horror stories about wives. And I know people that have had Chinese wives or partners, which it's just not worked out because they've both had such different, conflicting kind of things. But for me, I've been pretty lucky. Like my wife's family are fantastic. I think without them, I would not be as where I am now because they're both my wife. It's kind of weird. If you've got a few minutes, so I can start from the beginning, right? So my mum is one of 3 and was a teacher. My dad is one of 7 and worked like his company in England. They supply big contracts for machinery tires and stuff. So my dad looks after pretty much most of the country for it. And then weirdly enough, my father-in-law does the same thing, but here, and he's one of 3. So it's the same as my mum. And then my mother-in-law is one of 7. It's pretty similar to my dad. And did a similar job to my mum, both in education. And yeah, so the family kind of, it's weird because it's like we have a lot of really separate culture, but we have so much stuff which is the same. It's kind of freaky. They're really good as well. They don't Like they do the Chinese thing, like, you know, like they'll come in and they'll be like, oh, he's not wearing enough clothes. You need to put 10 more layers of clothes on, make him look like a bull. Come on.
Yep.
Like occasionally, you know, and there's all sorts of stuff that you have to like, stuff that's culturally Chinese that they're very into.
Yeah.
Like they've just taken them to this, it's called Tuina, and it's like some kind of like massage and Chinese health medicine things where they get all the phlegm and spit out of people via this kind of massage thing if you have a cold or something like this. And they do all this kind of like wacky stuff where they burn.
How does that go on?
Burn herbs on their stomach, and it kind of goes up a tube. It looks like they're in the middle of an alien thing going on, like they're being kidnapped. But yeah, it's like like I said, my in-laws are very good because they're very understanding. They're very much in the mindset of if you don't want us to do it, we won't do it. They don't force anything. But they still have all the Chinese kind of, you know, like the Chinese stuff that you hear about. There's still some of that. But without them, they basically retired, and then they come around and they've started to work for me now. So they'll turn up at like 10. They'll turn up at 10 o'clock in the morning, and they'll have Martin, because Martin's one, and I still need to do stuff because I'm trying to transition from teaching to video production. So I do a lot of work where I go out and shoot commercials, or I need to be editing commercials. So without them, I would have to be trying to do that whilst babysitting and looking after the youngest. Like even when
I would say that's 1,000% why we're here in China right now, is having good help, just having an IE, just having after school.
Yeah.
I couldn't afford to do what I do in America. I was stay-at-home mom because of the timing, the hours of school, and like I just couldn't. Whatever I would make in a job, I would have just been paying in childcare in America. It's so expensive. Here I can actually afford someone to help.
And here, IEs are not expensive particularly. Like we had one. I think we paid her $3,000 a month just to turn up for 4 hours a day, and she'd clean round every day and then cook the dinner. So it kind of took the pressure off my in-laws a bit. But then we kind of always, it's like a negotiation of like, sometimes they'll come early and do something if we need to be doing something. Other times I'll just send them home and say, go relax, you know, take some time off from your job here. And it's just without them being here, it would be impossible. I see a lot of people that are here in China and they don't, you know, they're foreigners. It's two foreigners maybe, and they don't have the family structure here. The fantastic thing about having a Chinese family is that they are entirely focused on helping each other out no matter what. So it will be not just my in-laws, but it will be my wife's entire family that will pitch in and all kind of, you know, everybody looks out for each other. And it's the one thing I really like about China is the family structure and the way family is a big team.
Mm-hmm. So Casey, do you have any input on that, since you're a foreigner?
I'm a completely single mother with no family here at all. I agree with like making how do I say, having that kind of what is that word? Oh, I went blank. Support system. Having that kind of support system can make 1,000% difference. I mean, for example, at work, half the time the kids' parents never even bring them into class. It's always the grandparents that bring them in. And I don't have a mother here. I don't have a father here. I don't have a husband here. It's just me and my daughter. I don't have an IE either. So it's like kids 24/7 of my life. So yeah, I can really understand how having that kind of support and help can make such a big difference. I can't even imagine. That's all I have to say. I'm just jealous of your life.
I mean, I don't
Yeah,
have any
yeah.
family
I mean,
either.
I am very lucky. I am super lucky.
I don't have family here, and my husband works really long hours, and sometimes, holidays have him working Saturdays and on Mondays, whatever.
Yeah.
I hate that system, but, and I'm an actress, so sometimes I'll be on set for crazy hours, and all I need is I hear at 2 when they get home from school, just to know that somebody's here.
someone's there.
And they can deal with that sort of thing, to me, is worth every single penny, and that's something in America I couldn't afford.
Mhm.
I will say though that I got very lucky with a certain situation because I live in a tier 3 city. So I don't live in a big advanced, I live in an oil city. Basically it's like, I don't know how to explain it. If you've ever been to Dutching, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a very dry, it's very cold. The winters get down to like minus 25. It's a very unique experience in China. And it's not very international. Sorry?
Are you close to Yinchuan area?
I don't
No.
know. I'm in Heilongjiang province. So it's
Way up there.
northwest.
Right at the top.
Yeah, right at the top, near Russia. Actually, you can take a train from
I kind
to
of love
Russia.
that though, because I like snowboarding. So I miss snow. I live in the south
It's
of
very
China.
fun. I'm
Yeah.
actually gonna take Kaylin skiing tomorrow because in the winter they set up these places in the city where you can go skiing and you can play like play on the ice and things. But
You get a lot of Russians.
what I was
up
gonna
there?
Yeah, every day somebody asks me if I'm Russian every day, and I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm South African, and then they don't believe me. I think one Christmas 2 years ago, I was actually at a place where we were ice skating, and this old ayi comes to me and she's like, "You're Russian." Now, obviously they're speaking Chinese, so she's like, "You're Russian." I said, "I'm not Russian." And she's like, "No, you Russian." I said, "I'm not Russian." And she's like, "I know you're Russian." And she's arguing with me about if I'm Russian or not. And I'm telling her, "How can you tell me I'm Russian? I know where I'm from." So
There you go. Yeah,
yes,
okay, I'm
they
So I,
but no, you can't, because they'll start to speak to you in Russian. Because
funny.
up here some of them learn Russian. So
oh yeah.
if you do that, they're gonna start, and I can say hello, and that's it in Russian. Anyways, the city that I'm very close
disgusting
to.
words from internet gaming. That's the only way I know.
I know.
Let's keep it PG, Alex.
I can say all the bad words too. But the city, the capital of is it capital? No, the of Heilongjiang is Harbin. Harbin is where they have the ice festival every winter, and it's about 50 minutes train from where I live. So it's very cool.
I've always wanted to go to that.
Yeah, we were gonna go this winter, and then they locked us
down
up
early
again.
though, right?
Now we're not allowed. Sorry?
How do you keep your kids entertained?
Isn't it shut down early?
Sorry?
I think the ice festival has been closed early this year.
Yeah. They closed our schools up here. They closed our schools on the 10th of January already. We stopped working. All not just schools, all training centers, all classes, all public, private schools, everything closed from the 10th of Jan. So we were going to go to the ice festival, and then
like that here.
And then we were told we can't leave anymore. But what I was gonna say is, the first I was a very young and maybe naive, but when you're young, you decide to do. I'm still young, but when you're young and you just have an idea to do something, you don't think about the consequences. You don't think about anything. You just, this is what I want to do, and this is what I'm gonna do. And then you get older, and then you start thinking about it more. You start having to take everything into consideration. That fear kind of sets in a little bit more, And that's what happened when I moved here. I was actually working in Chongqing, and my daughter wasn't with me. It was 8 months, and I would go back for 1 month between the 8 months for holiday. She was still in South Africa. And then I wanted to bring her up to China to stay with me. So I decided I was just looking for job options, and this is the job option that I got. I didn't do any research. I didn't look into anything. I was just like, working hours seem good. They said they're going to help me with Kaylin. Okay, I'm doing it. And I didn't think about anything. I didn't research anything. I just got on a plane with my daughter, and I arrived in the city that I had no idea about. And it was really difficult. Just the culture shock, the trying to adjust to not having my daughter for 8 months. Now I'm a mother again. Now I'm a single mother. Now I'm living in this foreign city, in this foreign country where I don't even know one single person. It was really hard. But my school helped me to get Kaylin into a kindergarten, which was like right where I lived. So I remember the first day walking into her kindergarten. She was happy, whatever. The next day I started my classes, and this man and his daughter came in, and I was like, wow, this child can speak really, her English is so good. She sounded for a 4-year-old like fluent. And after that, her and Kaylin became friends, and that was 4 years ago. And they have become like Kaylin's Chinese family. They say, like, I swear, if it wasn't for them, I couldn't have done it, because they've become the support that we need. Like, if I need to go to the hospital, if I need to go anywhere, if I need somebody to watch her, even simple things like getting glasses, something like that, they will drop everything to help her. They see her like sister. Yeah. They're like sisters, you know? So yeah, that was a bit of a long story, but I was just getting back to what Alex said about that family. I don't have family, but they are the closest thing. And if it wasn't for them, Kaylin's experience here would have been completely different, because at least she has a friend now, a friend that she sees like a sister, you know?
Yeah, you need that connection. You need something which, you know, like that's, I guess a lot of people, I can only surmise, because I'm not in the same situation, but you can imagine that if I didn't have the connection I have with all my wife's family here, because Chinese families are big, so it's like they're all over the city everywhere. They're all over China, different places.
Okay,
so
but Chinese families are
without that, it would be.
It doesn't mean that they have a lot of kids. I just want to make. The one thing I've found culturally is they don't understand the dynamic of a family that has 2 or more kids. That's been very difficult for us, at least, as far as finding like an IU who can handle 2 kids. It's very difficult for her to understand it. Or like cars that have 4 seats, or like if I go for an entertainment, like some sort of like entry into a park, it's normally 2 adults and 1 child. So we always have to pay for the extra child. And to us, that's a normal family, but here it's as a large family and difficult to understand sometimes.
Well, traditionally, the Chinese family is the ideal was a nuclear family, because the Chinese character Hao is comprised of 一个女, which is female,
the woman under the roof.
So the ideal family traditionally would be 1 son and 1 daughter. I guess that's kind of changed in the modern times with the 1-child policy and other things. But traditionally, the ideal was the 1 of each. It's kind of strange sometimes when you see I see some, like when they had the 1-child policy, there was a massive emphasis on having boys. So like I had 2 students, and this is the strangest thing ever. I had 2 students in my grade, 1 in grade 3 and 1 in grade 4. And the 1 in grade 4 was the uncle of the 1 in grade 3. because his parents were so focused that I think they'd had a son and a daughter, and the son had died. So then they wanted another son so badly, they'd had another son, but very, very, like, the mother was, his sister was essentially the same age as me. And her daughter was the grade below. So it made for an interesting family situation, but there's a lot of different interesting kind of because the families here, I guess, going back a while, were quite big, and then there's always things which kind of like, you think the one-child policy, I think mainly this applies in cities. So if you lived in the countryside, there was a lot of big families, because the other thing they like to do here, and what I hear my wife's family and a lot of families go on about, is that they wanted to have a lot of children, because the more children you have when you're older, and then you need looking after, you've got more children to look after you.
Well, when you're agricultural, you have more kids to work the farm. They don't need that anymore. It's more expensive to have kids because you got to afford the clothing and the schooling and the cars and the whatever else. So I have heard that it's been eased, but I don't see people having more than one just because. I definitely think people have rethought it. Even me as an American, I see how they can stop in a teachable moment and sit there with a child and be like, don't run across the street because this, that, whatever else. Me, I'm like, get out of the street. I got to run and get the other kid, and then I got to hold all these groceries and whatever. So if I had to do it again, I think I would have spaced my kids a little bit more so I could have had those quiet moments where we learn things.
Yeah. I think though it's very different now in bigger cities compared to maybe smaller industrial cities or something like that, because to raise even one child in Shanghai, I can't even imagine how much it would cost. Like, we're lucky enough that as foreigners, if we get a job, it will generally be a higher paying job than the average Chinese citizen, like, because of just what we do here. But even for a foreigner, it's expensive, and I can't imagine being somebody that's just earning a minimum wage, living in a city like Shanghai or Shenzhen, and trying to provide for more than one. It would be a lot. But then
the education level has gotten to a degree where women have good jobs. We really have to think twice about, do I want to be a mom because I have this great career? Or do I want to give it up to, have the kids, be a mother, whatever else? But like you were saying before, when you have these close families that are able to kind of take some of that burden off of the woman, then that's great. But a lot of them have moved to the cities, so their families aren't as close as they used to be. Women are making just as much money as the men here, which is fabulous. I love China that they will actually talk about who's making what, so therefore it's more of a even field again. I am seeing more and more women finally making that decision of like, maybe I don't need to have children. Maybe that's a choice I can make. The older generation is still pushing their, please marry my daughter. They still go to the park with this sign.
Like before they're 26 or something?
What?
Yeah.
There's like that certain age where they're like, not.
See, and I was 35 when I got married. So
28, if you're not married by 28,
yeah.
Don't ask me. Don't ask me. I had my daughter before I even knew like what I wanted to do with my life. Before I had decided if I wanted to be blonde or brunette, I had a child. So for me, it was kind of like...
That's okay too, because at some point you'll be able to get through that part and then have the second part of your life, Like I didn't have my children until I was 35. So I kind of had to wait for them to get back into school before I could start my career again and that sort of thing. So I just think when it used to not be a choice for women, it now actually is a choice.
Yeah. I think that was the difference, whereas I still needed to live my life, and I have a child, but it's not going to stop me from actually like doing things. She's going to come along for the ride and we're going to do it together. And this is the hand I've dealt myself, or been dealt, but this is what I'm going to do. And this is, I think also because we're doing this about like maybe if a foreigner or expat wants to come to China and they have kids, like what do they think? How will they do it? And I think that there's so many resources, but also you have to be that one to want to find a way to figure out a problem. You can't just be like, well, this is what my life is like now. I don't know what to do. Just going to go with it. We all had to make that choice. Like, okay, we're going to leave. We're going to a different country. It's going to be difficult. We're not going to know what's going on. But we'll figure it out because it's something that I want and I need a change. And
Yeah, I'm
That's
just
what
saying,
I
like,
did.
for the Chinese couples who used to only be able to have one, now they have the ability to have two, but they're choosing not to have that second one. I think part of that is because of education. Also, like at home in America, the religious factor pushes you to have kids, where the religious factor here is none. So I don't know
There's
if
still
that.
quite a lot of
Alex?
there's still quite a lot of emphasis to have children, especially Wenzhou here's a tier 2 now. But there is a lot of emphasis still for them to have children and get married at like 27, 28 here, and you're starting to you're going down the other side of the hill here apparently, according to that. So there's a lot of pressure for them still to have children, but it's a lot better, and there's a lot of options nowadays. Even I've been here 8 years, and I since being here, because I've just been in Wenzhou. I literally, I kind of like Casey. I was just sat in England one day, and I was like, "Ooh, a job in China. Why not? Let's just try it." And I think two weeks between actually finding a job on the internet randomly one day and being here.
I found a job, and 2 weeks later, I was on the airplane.
Yeah, I've been back to England twice, and I've been back to South Africa once. I actually went back to South Africa for my honeymoon. Me and my wife went there, and we still got a bunch of houses over there. So we went Cape Town and up the Garden Route to Hermanus.
I'm from the Garden Route.
Oh, Garden
Alex,
Route's my
you have
favorite
family
place.
in South Africa too?
Yeah, my mum's side. We have originally they were all from up Rhodesia side and Joburg, and then now down into Cape Town. If you know Cape Town at all, it's all most of the stuff's all Woodstock, Constantia, and somewhere called Noordhoek, which is right out by Cape Point. But yeah, where I have not been. My original point anyway was that I've been here a long time, and it's kind of changed. Attitudes are changing. There is a lot of stuff to do with marriage and children, which has changed a lot. And I guess it because it sounds kind of wild compared to everybody else's experiences. And I guess because China is so varied and so different, Wenzhou, although it's a tier 2 city, is very, very affluent. If you ask most people anywhere in China, they'll know that Wenzhou is very famous for business and having a lot of money. So there's a lot of if you buy a car here, a BMW is just considered an average car.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I know, right? You're but yeah, so there's a lot. Huh?
I have a scooter.
I mean, I have a scooter that I haven't used for a couple of years, but I don't even like driving now. I'd rather just sit on the bus.
All right, guys. Sorry, I'm going to have to end the meeting here because it's just over an hour now. But yeah, I think we did cover a lot. There was just another question, but, I mean, I was going to bring up the thing about childbirth, but I mean, Alex has videos on that if anybody wants to check that out.
Nice.
I vlogged the whole way through.
All right.
I was in the delivery room vlogging.
Yeah,
so yeah,
it's all
was
there.
Fun times.
All right. Thanks everybody for your time. And yeah, didn't get too many views, but we'll see later on.
We'll share it.
Cool.
All right. Yeah, thanks. All right, guys.
Nice.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you so much. See you.
Ta-ra.